The Final Fantasy series has come a long way over the past 35 years, but the same can be said about Final Fantasy 1, which has also come a long way over the past 35 years with releases on loads of systems. From the 1987 NES exclusive with black boxes, 8-bit graphics, catchy MIDI tunes and more black boxes, all the way to the 2021 Steam Pixel Remaster made up of beautiful pixel art and an incredible remastered soundtrack and no black boxes. Final Fantasy 1 ain't what it used to be, except that it kinda still is, which is the best part of this Pixel Remaster. This release provides the traditional FF1 experience with a fresh coat of paint, which is important since the outdated presentation and brutal mechanics of the original isn't something too many modern gamers would choose to play. The latest series of Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters are the perfect way to experience these classics from arguably the most important JRPG series of all time. If you've ever wondered how it all started, then the FF1 Pixel Remaster is the best way to play the game. Before we begin, I need help slaying the behemoth that is the YouTube algorithm, so hit the like button and leave a comment about your experience with the first Final Fantasy game. Also, if you're into JRPGs, make sure you sub. I'll be making videos for all the Pixel Remasters in the future. Alright, let's get into it. I'm sure you all know the story by now. And so their quest began. As the four warriors of light, they felt overwhelmed by the great task destiny had placed before them. They did not even know the true significance of the four crystals they held in their hand. The crystals that once, long ago, held a light that shone so brilliantly. The time for their journey had come. The time to cast off the veil of darkness and bring the world once more into light. Believe it or not, but this game has no voice acting. That was all me. So yeah, you play the role of the four warriors of light who can be selected at the start of the game from 6 classes: warrior, monk, thief, white mage, black mage and red mage. Each of these classes plays differently and will also evolve at a key point in the game, such as the warrior evolving into a knight. This adds quite a bit of replayability to the game, even if some classes seem a lot more useful than others. For a bunch of world-saving heroes with exceptional combat abilities, they surprisingly haven't developed vocal cords yet. These main characters don't have any dialogue and are guided around by the many NPCs that fill the land. This is a game from 1987, so obviously the story is simple and a far cry from what the series eventually grew into. But it had to start somewhere, right? To progress through the plot, you'll be running from one point to another, often delivering required items to NPCs in order to proceed to the next objective. Now, sometimes the clarity of these objectives falls somewhere between a little vague to close to impossible to work out on your own, so don't feel bad if you need to turn to a walkthrough for what to do next. I certainly did, and I've already played versions of this game. Now, being on PC, there are loads of mods out there to enhance the gameplay experience, such as personalizing the interface or adjusting the balancing. I usually stay away from these, as I only think it's fair that I play the core game for the purpose of review, but I certainly encourage you guys to look into what mods are on offer. With that said, I had to install one mod, and that was to fix the anorexic font selected for this remaster. This skinny ass font was probably the only poor design choice that was made in an otherwise excellent remaster. It is beyond me why this was selected by the developers. If anyone has any insight into this horrible design choice, please let me know. The FF1 Pixel Remaster does a great job in modernising the game's presentation and the mechanics, so let's talk about these upgrades. For starters, the brand new pixel graphics look great and is a massive upgrade when compared to previous versions. And fun fact, Square Enix even brought back Kazuko Shibuya, who was the pixel artist in the original release. Then of course there is the music, which is personally my favourite part of this remaster. The great Nobuo Uematsu returned as the supervisor for these brand new full-scale arrangements of his classics, and they sound incredible. I could seriously listen to these all day, but this was made difficult due to the background tracks being interrupted every time you enter a menu. The beautiful town themes are also interrupted every time you enter a store, which meant that unless you purposely stand still, you'll usually only get about 5 seconds of the track before it cuts off. I would have loved a setting option to customize how the music plays in these situations. Other new additions include quick save and autosave, and an upgrade to movement which now adds directional movements as well as a run button. However, arguably the single best quality of life inclusion is the addition of maps. Not only are we finally given a mini-map at the top of the screen, but you can also bring up larger world maps and dungeon maps. This is an absolute game changer when compared to past FF1 releases, as it significantly reduces the time that you'll spend looking for your destination. This is really important as there is an insanely high encounter rate. I found dungeon crawling to be painful before, but now it's not quite as excruciating as you're not doing it for so long. Now, let's talk a bit about the battle system. It had to start somewhere, right? Here we have a very simple turn-based system where characters can attack, defend, use an item, or magic if their class permits. This simplicity is basically what you'd expect from a 30-year-old JRPG with a few new quality of life additions that were sorely needed. The first is Auto Battle. This automatically repeats the previous actions with a slight increase to battle speed, which is the perfect way to quickly get through random battles. Also, in the past, if you attacked an enemy who has been killed, your turn was wasted. This time, these attacks are automatically redirected to another enemy. This may not sound important, but if you've played the original, you'll understand how often turns were wasted. The magic system in Pixel Remaster returns to its roots, totally removing the MP pool that was introduced in the Game Boy Advanced version of Final Fantasy 1. Basically, mages have a set number of spell uses for each spell level. This means that you're more likely to use a range of magic from different levels rather than just the most powerful ones. In previous versions, I would just save my MP for bosses, but with this system, I was encouraged to use my low and mid-level spells for random enemies, saving my high-powered spells for bosses. Also worth noting is the new cosmetic system. For example, you can unlock these awesome sunnies when the enemy casts blind on you. Sorry, couldn't resist, but wouldn't it be cool if there were snazzy cosmetics like this? Or maybe not? If you've played OG FF1, you'll probably agree that that game could be brutal. Over the years, FF1 has become easier and easier, and Pixel Remaster follows this trend with some new additions to make the experience a lot more casual. For starters, the requirement to grind has been significantly reduced. Spells and equipment are not only cheaper, but you'll get a lot more gil and EXP. I spent exactly 0 minutes grinding. All of my character growth was done naturally through random encounters, and I breezed through the game with ease. With that said, there is still a chance that a random mob can pop up, spam magic on you, and take you to the game over screen, but that's now fine because you can quick save at any time outside of battle. I remember being furious after trekking through a dungeon for an hour only to be cheaply killed just before a boss, but this risk of losing progress no longer exists thanks to autosave and quick save. So yes, this game is very easy, all up into one of the most insane difficulty curves I've ever experienced. The final boss is just ridiculous and completely wiped me out during my first attempt. The second time, I got lucky and managed to kill him because he didn't repetitively spam his strongest moves on me over and over again. So ignoring this final boss, the FF1 Pixel Remaster is much easier than it used to be, and personally I'm fine with what the game has become. These changes obviously make it much more accessible for new gamers, and that's a great thing. After all, it's not like the older versions have just disappeared from the earth. With that said, I think it would have been cool for the game to have a hard mode more in line with the original versions for us veterans. What do you think about that? Final Fantasy 1 ain't what it used to be, while still being what it used to be. This Pixel Remaster is the best version of the game and the perfect opportunity for newcomers to see where it all started, or veterans to dip back into what they loved in the past. In terms of general enhancements and quality of life improvements, Pixel Remaster does a great job with beautiful pixel graphics and outstanding soundtrack and loads of features to make this experience more enjoyable. But at the end of the day, the core game is still a game of the 80s. There are still plenty of elements that are clearly a product of its time, such as the insane random encounter rate and simple mechanics. And also the font. The font is shit and the only poor design choice in an otherwise beautifully presented game. If you ever wanted to go back and see where this series started, then look no further than the Final Fantasy 1 Pixel Remaster. It is the best way to experience this classic. What did you think of the Final Fantasy 1 Pixel Remaster? Let me know in the comments, and also hit like if you enjoyed this review. It helps me out a lot with the final boss of YouTube, the evil algorithm. This was Hellfire RPGs, thanks for watching. Did you know that in the original English release of Final Fantasy I, the tombstone in Elfheim reads "Here lies Erdrick," which is a jab at Enix's Dragon Quest series. In all other versions of the game, this was changed to "Here lies Link." There are loads more awesome facts like this in my Final Fantasy I Know the Facts video. It's an old one, but it still has some great facts. Also, if you want more FF and RPG content, make sure you sub. There'll be a review for the FF2 Pixel Remaster coming soon. See you next time.